Welcome to this week's lesson. In this week, we're going to look at the second step in attracting people to your website, and that is to write 10 key articles that form part of your content on your website. Now, you need to produce ongoing content based on the questions that people ask. That's pretty simple, isn't it? We did a lot of keyword research back at the start, and we're probably continuing to add to that list as we go along. So we have plenty of questions. The who, how, where, when, why questions are always a good place to start. Nice and simple. So we take those questions and we need to produce some really nice quality content. Now, there's a couple of elements to this. First is that the search engines really like nice content. And secondly, humans like really good content. It gets shared. So writing good content is worthwhile. So if you, for example, take the question, how do you shoot a long range shot with a telephoto lens? Okay, just to pick one out of the air. You may change that to something different, to say 10 ways to shoot a long range shot with a telephoto lens. Articles like that, and you will find lists of these, and I'll include some with the notes, of different sorts of ways you can ask questions, different sorts of styles. So 10 different ways, 3 things that can go wrong, how to make sure, all those sorts of question starters, kind of turn them into a bit of a statement, but in the end you're actually answering a question, which is, how do I use a long distance lens, or a telephoto lens to shoot long distance shots? Okay, so you need to take those questions that we added into that list, and you need to one by one create some content. Now, what I think is really important is to have a look through them and decide, which ones are actually getting the most traffic. And remember, we talked about using Google Instant Search. So as you start typing, you notice the searches coming up, and that's one way to see kind of which ones are the most popular. But it really doesn't matter. You in your own head have probably got a fair idea of what the most common questions are that your clients ask around the area that you do your business in. So we're talking about 10 to 20 10,000 word articles. Now look, you can look at putting big articles together. If you aim for 1,000 words to start off with, that's a fantastic place to start. And I know, like, when I started out life as a tradesman, that was my first real full-time job after I left school, and I did my trade in electronics with a telecommunications company. And then I went back to university to train as a teacher. And going back to university after being away for 4 years doing trade and having to write my first assignment of 1,000 words, look, it felt like climbing Mount Everest. I felt like every time I wrote a couple of words, I'd do the word count. And it was like, oh yeah, I've done 211. Type big pile more, it's like 232. It can be really, really painful writing big articles. The trick is to break them down into bite-sized pieces, and I'll teach you a method for doing that. But writing big articles is worthwhile. Good quality chunks of content, up around that 2,000 to 3,000 words. And that's, for example, why I said, 10 different ways to, because it makes it much easier to actually expand your content out. If you've got to talk about 10 things, they work really well for you in the search engines, and they last a long time because they have a good amount of text in them. They answer actually a range of different questions. So it may be that Google can rank that article for 5 or 6 different searches, not just one main search. So it's absolutely worth your effort to create these articles. Now, as I said, I'm going to teach you a way to write articles, which will help you do this. But the other alternative that I'll give you the heads up on right at the start is that you can pay people to write articles. Okay, there is people that specialize in writing quality content. You can give them the questions, you can give them references to quality content that's built around what you want to talk about, and they can produce that content for you. And there's a range of sites where you can go and pay for that, or you can go and hire a writer through somewhere like Upwork, which allows you to hire qualified writers. You can check their feedback and all that. It is worth, if you're going to look at investing some money into your website outside of what you're normally doing, getting someone to do content for you. But the trick is that you're not looking for those cheap, nasty articles that we used to use, because Google's now said that that's really bad content, so they totally ignore it and they really don't care for it. So you are looking for quality content. So 10 to 20 good size articles. So this is a little site that I set up. It's no longer live, and if you go there you won't see this site because I let the domain go and someone else has bought it. But it was based around chiropractic neck pillows, and that was the domain. And it was a really simple concept. This is an SEO based site, not a business site. It is a business, it sells pillows, but it's not like the usual sort of business. But what I want you to understand is the concept behind it. So first things first, the domain name actually contains the keywords that we're trying to rank for. People will tell you that this doesn't work. Yeah, it does in Australia, certainly, and overseas it still works pretty well. So having a good domain name actually can help SEO, but that's not always, available, and it's not always possible when you're a business because you've got your business name domain. So either way, but you'll notice it's titled chiropractic neck pillows. So I've got a nice big fat H1 heading at the top there with what it is that we're targeting. And then you'll see three main articles: chiropractic pillows, choosing a pillow, and memory foam pillows. And each of these articles is a specific 1,000-word article that talks about that topic. And in this case, I didn't actually write these articles. I had someone else write them for me. I wrote the question I wanted answered, and they wrote the article based around that, and then I edited it afterwards. So I find that sometimes I'll get a writer to write something, and then I'll go through, and maybe it's just the teacher in me, or maybe it's just I'm pedantic because it's my stuff and I've got a personal, stake in it. I like to run through it and kind of, fix it up the way I want it to sound. So it does come like it's coming out of my mouth. So I'll go through and I'll edit it afterwards, which really speeds up the process because you can edit in half an hour. If you've got to write an article, it can take 4 or 5 hours minimum. By the time you write it, put it away, come back to it, put it away, come back to it, there's quite a process involved in there. So in this case, chiropractic, pillows, what goes into choosing one, and then all about memory foam pillows, which are a type of chiropractic pillow. Now, in the case of these three articles, these are the three biggest searches that people were looking for. They were looking for chiropractic neck pillows. They were looking at how to choose a chiropractic pillow. And the last one was, what's this all about, this memory foam pillows? So these articles were targeted towards the audience. Now, this is the same concept that you apply on your site. You write articles that are targeted to your audience that are looking for what it is that you do or sell. So if you sell training, you would write about different training courses and what they offer. Why would you choose the basic over the advanced, etc. Or built around a new feature that's just come out that you can talk about that you cover in your course. There's so many different things you can do. But your keyword research, when you find those phrases, those long tails as we call them, more than 2 words, 3, 4, 5 word phrases that people are searching for, that's what you turn into your articles. So writing the articles is super important. Making sure you target the keywords, super important as you go forward. You're going to find that you're always thinking from an SEO perspective. And if you're not, you need to start thinking that way. Everything you do online, if you want the free traffic from the search engines, yeah, sure, you can buy it. That's easy. But you still want to land it on good quality content, don't you? So, in this module we're talking about Attract, everything you do to improve the pages on your website and add good quality articles gives you places that you can actually land paid traffic. So it all works together. You can't escape good quality content. Now, you can include videos, so you can talk the article out and have a video there, because some people like videos, some people like audio, some people like text, but search engines like text. So you should be writing, okay? Different article from a finance site, okay? How much retirement income is enough to live to 100? Now, you can see straight away there, if this is a finance site, how much retirement income is enough to live on. You can see that that's a real question that someone might ask. It's not, kind of airy-fairy. It is pretty straightforward. I'm sitting at my computer. I'm 70 years old. I'm thinking, look, I haven't been able to retire yet, but I'm kind of getting to the stage where I have to, or even 60 or 50. And you're kind of going, how much am I going to need to live on? So this is a way to produce an article, and then that finance company can then say, we'll sit down with you, we do a flat rate assessment, and we'll be able to tell you where you're at, where you could be and whether you're in a position to retire right now, or whether for the next 5 years we need to do this, that, and the other. So from the perspective of selling the finance company, this works really, really well, because you're answering a question, you're teaching people something, and then you're offering them that you can help them, and it's not an excessive fee. Just click here and book. And in fact, the first 45 minutes might be a free consult, who knows. But this is a perfect example of content. Now you'll notice it says recent posts, because this site was built on WordPress. On WordPress, it kind of breaks down in two sections. You've got the pages, which are your permanent static content, about us, contact us, our services, those sorts of things. And then you have the posts, which are dynamic, in other words, articles ongoing that keep being added to the website. Now, I prefer not to call them posts. I actually prefer to call them articles. I don't think posts fits with a business context. I think that businesses write articles, that lifestyle bloggers write posts. So I will call them articles, but there you go. That's how it fits together with WordPress. And there's something like 72% of the websites in the world, or something, 72 million websites are built on WordPress. That's how I see the two things. One is static, one is dynamic. All the new content and articles should go into your posts. So, how do we produce quality articles if we're going to do them ourselves? The first thing we need to do is we need to put aside some time to actually write or record them. So this is two options. You can get someone to transcribe your article. I personally find it easier to talk, even though I quite enjoy typing as well. I can type very fast, but sometimes it's good to talk something out and then edit it up in text form later. So you do have the option where you can actually talk your article, get it transcribed, and get it back within an hour or next day, whatever you choose. There's loads of apps around that you can literally talk to your phone and then press send, and it will go straight through to a transcriber who will then transcribe it and send it straight back to you, and you get charged per word, whatever it is, 2 cents or whatever. So that's a really good way to create articles if you just want to talk it out, and then you can edit it up into a more cohesive form. But one of the things that's really important if you're going to do that, and even if you're going to write a text article, is that you actually plan out a little bit before you start. So don't just try and talk straight off the top of your head. Think about how you're going to do that. And what I like to do is use this little writing process you see on the screen there. So I come up with a title, and the title is normally, say, a question. So it might be, how long is a piece of string? Great, okay. And I'm going to need a little introduction that kind of brings people into the article. I'm going to look at, say, 3 headings and then 3 sub-points for each heading, and write a paragraph about each of those, and then I'm going to conclude the article and bring it all back together at the end. So simple concept, sort of thing we learn in primary school on how to write a letter, etc. But in this case, by putting 3 headings in, you can actually break the article up into 3 sections. So if it's, how long is a piece of string, the first section might be, what length, what thickness is the string. The next one might be, what type of material is the string made out of. And the last one might be, is the string new or old. They might be our 3 main headings. So when someone's looking for information about how long is a piece of string and they come to our website, they can scan down, they can go, oh, I know how long it is. What sort of string is it? What type of string is it? How does that affect how long it is? Yes, this is a weird example, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. Now, for each one of those, okay, so what type of string? You have 3 sub-points. And I like to think of it as 3 paragraphs for each one. And so you might talk about, nylon, fabric, and steel might be the 3 types of string, okay? And then you write 100 words about each one of those. Now, 100 words is approximately 5 sentences, 6 sentences, okay? It's not too many sentences. So by breaking this down into little subsections, it actually makes it much simpler to write, because you only have to write 5 or 6 sentences about steel, 5 or 6 about fabric, and 5 or 6 about nylon, and you've done that whole section, okay? So, and then you do it for the other two sections. So before long, you can actually be, so you've got 300 there, 300 in the first one, 300 in the last one, plus an intro and a conclusion. You're already at 1,000 words. And it makes the process so much simpler. Now, the thing to think about here is that if you write this out, so you write your heading and you write your 3 subpoints, you can speak that off the top of your head if you want to. That's easy. Or you can write it. But if you're going to write it, remember that you're really going to be writing a draft version. And I learned this the hard way. The best thing to do is write a draft version of it. So go through and write it all. And then put it away for 24 hours at least. And then come back and open it up and read it again. Because when you read it the second time, it's changed. I don't know, the elves get in there and change it, who knows. But it actually reads different to what you thought it did. And sometimes you'll read a bit and you go, well, that's really good. I did a good job on that bit. Or you'll read a bit and you go, ooh, that's not what I meant at all. I need to change that. Another really quick tip. If you really want to hear how your article sounds to someone else, read it out loud. Now, this is something I used to teach my year 4s. And it made a massive difference to the quality of their work. They'd bring their story up to me. I'd look at it and go, ooh, this isn't real crash hot. I know this kid can do better. Go and read it out loud to yourself in the corner. And then they'd start reading and you'd see them stop and they'd circle something and they keep reading it. And their eyebrows would go up and down and you'd see them kind of contemplating, okay, this really isn't my best work. They'd then go back and edit it, go and read it to themselves again. And then they would bring it back to me. So I found that actually really increased the quality of their work. And I've taught that to every grade since. As I said, I'm teaching it to you now. But reading what you've written out loud completely changes what you've written when you hear it out loud. You really do hear, like you've left out words or you've put the, things like that. You pick up all these things that you cannot see when you're looking at it on the page. So go and read it out loud before you publish it. Read it out loud. And I do this all the time. Every time I write something, I write a paragraph, read it out loud. Oh yeah, that sounds good. Write another one, then go back and read it all. That doesn't gel with the next paragraph, doesn't connect. Revise and revise. Obviously, this is time consuming, and that's where using someone else to write for you and just doing some editing can be a very valuable time saver. But for 10 key articles, it's often worth really doing them yourself if you're the sort of person who sells their knowledge, for example, like a speaker or an author or a consultant. It is absolutely worth doing it yourself. If you're an electrician, look, it might not be your forte, or a plumber or a dog trainer. Fair enough, okay? Don't be embarrassed about it. Don't feel like I'm trying to put pressure on you. Get someone else to do it, okay? Pay someone. You don't have to get one a month. It'll cost you between $20 and $100 depending on the quality. But you get 10 really good articles, it'll pay for itself over time in the traffic that it drags. So open your big keyword lists, go through there, pick out some phrases, think about how that will work for you, and just go through them all and pick the ones that you think in the end are going to make the best articles based on the ones people ask and ring in, and they always ask the same questions, and work from that. Okay. Now remember that you need to leverage those articles. So you can actually, break them down and use them over and over again. So for example, if we look at it kind of monthly, weekly, daily, if we wrote one really good article, we can actually pull it apart and use it in so many different ways. So we might write an article for the month called Flash Photography Using DSLR Cameras. So that's pretty straightforward, and that allows us to talk about DSLR cameras as a group. And then we might write a weekly short version of that, which is the top 10 flashes for a particular make of DSLR cameras. So one week we might talk about a couple of different flashes. You don't have to necessarily do 10. You might say 3 flashes are great for a Sony, 3 flashes are good for a Canon or something like that. And then finally we can pull little bits out of that and the top article and use them on social media. Flash tips for Canons, flash filters for Sony, and use them on our social media. So remember, a really good article actually offers you the opportunity to pull chunks out of it and use it for short videos, social media posts. So write it over the top of a picture, etc. It has so many uses, it's really worthwhile, but don't just waste the content you produce, because once you produced it, everybody seems to go on to the next thing when in fact they've got so much value sitting in their website they're not using. They can pull little chunks out. So don't ever stress too much about having too much content, but when you think you don't have enough content and you've got 30 articles sitting on your website, you've definitely got enough to go back and revisit those and use them in all different ways. And we'll talk about that in the next section. Okay, so to revise, you need to produce a good 10 to 20 high quality 1,000 to 2,000 word articles for your website. Base them around the most popular questions that you think people ask, or twist them slightly so they're like the 10 best whatever, or 3 ways to. Okay, and I will include some examples of that for you to review. Otherwise, you can just go and search the web for the best titles for articles. Google's full of that stuff. Lots of marketers write it, so you'll find something. Use the formula. Write a headline, then you've got your introduction, then you've got 3 bullet points and 3 sub points for each one. Pretty straightforward. And then a conclusion. Make sure you draft and review, and remember you can use a writer. Okay, get them to do it, and then just have a look at it afterwards and make sure it fits in with the way you think or your business works. Maybe make a few edits. So your task for this week and from now on is actually to produce one good piece of content to go onto your website. Okay, so every month from now on, you need to get one of those. Now, the sooner you can get those 10 to 20 articles done, the better. So if you've got a bit of budget and you can afford to go out and get a writer to do some of those, do it. Okay, because you need that really good content on your website. So my advice is, if you're going to invest in anything at this stage, invest in a writer and get those done as soon as possible onto your website. If you can't, at least get one done. Okay, and then continue on every month after that. You want to be trying to do the same thing. It's not always possible, but if you can get 500 words up, a bit like our financial site that I gave you the example of, with the how much retirement income do I need, as long as you can get something like that up, it continues to focus what people are searching for onto the content on your site, then you're going to make a big difference to your business long term in the content that you produce, that gets found in Google, that then attracts people to your website. And I can absolutely guarantee this works. I've been doing it for too long, and I've talked with so many other experts around the world, and even today that is the one thing that they're recommending over everything else. Not link building, none of that stuff. Good quality content and articles on your website. I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson, and go ahead, get writing, get into it, and if you've got any questions, feel free to ask them.